not reformed, not fixed. It can't be fixed. It needs to go. And that's why it's called Drop the Rock.
We're here to demand the repeal of the Rockefeller Drug Laws.
The Rockefeller Drug Laws have put tens of thousands of mostly blacks and Latinos away on nonviolent drug charges over the past 35 years. These harsh sentences have torn lives, families, and communities apart. Hundreds came to Albany on March 21st to lobby assembly members to drop the Rockefeller Drug Laws. Governor Patterson is sympathetic to the cause and has even been arrested protesting them. Before 1973, when they first went into effect, drug offenders were often put into rehab, not locked up. Who was Rockefeller, and why did he want his name on these brutal laws? Rockefeller was rich and powerful before he was born. Heir to the oil fortune amassed by his grandfather, he was governor of New York from 1959 to 1973. As governor, he tried to run for U.S. president, but was considered too liberal because he supported Social Security. He thought looking tough on crime would help him win, so he passed the Rockefeller Drug Laws. He did become vice under Gerald Ford, but we still have the Rockefeller Drug Laws after 35 years.
If you're a first-time offender and you get caught with 2 ounces of crack cocaine, you are going to prison for a minimum of 8 to 20 years. It was 15 to life until just 3 or 4 years ago. 8 to 20 years, and there's no discretion in the courtroom with the judges. So basically you're stepping into a firing range, and it's all aimed at you because you have the prosecutors who moves up in rank based on how many convictions he gets, right? And then you have the judge who can't say anything. He has no say-so. There's minimum mandatory sentencing guidelines. So you get caught with this amount of drugs, you get this amount of time.
In 1973, there were a little more than 300,000 people locked up in the United States. We were coming out of the 60s, an era of liberal social policies. In 1973, all that changed with the passage of the Rockefeller Drug Laws, and since that time, it's the last 3.5 decades, the United States has been engaged in a prison expansion explosion. Prisons are like a voracious monster that are fed by government policies enacted in New York State and every state across the country and by our federal government. And the granddaddy of all of these policies is the Rockefeller Drug Laws. Again, 1973, when they were passed, they were the harshest drug laws, the harshest mandatory sentencing laws in the country. And they kicked off a virtual movement that swept the country. So now every state has mandatory sentencing laws in the books. Again, 1973, a little more than 300,000 people locked up in the United States. Today, there are 2.3 million people locked up in the United States. More than 2.3 million people. From 1982 to 2000, 18 years, we opened 38 prisons. 38 prisons in 18 years. And where were those prisons located? Every one of those prisons located in an upstate, white, rural community represented by a Republican state senator.
We get a group of us up here today. I'm representing Drop the Rock, seeing as many legislators as possible. And making sure that you all know that we haven't forgotten about it.
No, absolutely not. Neither have we. You know, it's really important. These are archaic laws that need to be changed.
Imagine that 35 years ago it was called archaic.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it was the mindset of 35 years ago. I suppose it was the governor at the time. And I think maybe he might have been a couple decades behind himself as well. But when it was first introduced, it sounded like a good idea to people. Yes. Until you actually seen the effects of it. You know, I know the Coalition against, our Coalition of Women Prisoners was here a few weeks ago. And this was one of their issues. And then when you're seeing this on a personal basis of a lot of these, women who ended up receiving these ridiculous sentences for first-time offenses, crime, that they likely wouldn't have been involved in if they just had a little different life situation, So I think just a lot of people have experienced it more and how it's actually affecting people on an individual level versus just this overall policy issue of it, that you're not capturing the people you thought you were going to capture. Right. It's this other population that you're getting involved with it. So I think, yeah, I think it definitely is the educational level. Everyone has been raised on it.
And 38 prisons later.
Right.
How do you close a prison?
We will spend $3 billion on the Department of Corrections this year. $3 billion. When I go to see prisons, I see my faces, right? That's who we see. We see my faces. If we saw other faces there, we think Rockefeller would have been changed a long time ago. Right? I stand for that, right?
The implementation of the Rockefeller Drug Laws is a form of institutionalized racism. It represents a gross miscarriage of justice, and that's why we bring so much energy to our effort to promote the repeal of these drug laws, because we want to take a major step toward eliminating that kind of racial injustice that's carried out by our government.
We're still going to spend $3 billion. And there are people who want us to spend that money, right, because they have vested economic interest in keeping those institutions open. It's how they feed their families. So I say, I understand that because I want to feed my family, and I know the people in my district want their families fed. But I don't want them feeding them off my babies. No, I don't want that.
My name is Nadine West. I'm 24 years old. I currently reside at the Fortunate Society. It's an ATI program. I'm getting my life together. I did 6 years before I reached the age of 20. So I too, like Nicole, was indirectly affected by the Rockefeller Drug Law family that's been incarcerated, you know, for being selling and you know what I mean. So I wrote a poem because I could better get my point across with poetry. That's just me. It's called Drop the Rock. I need y'all to listen. Now everyone pay attention. Former inmates, politicians and artists, students, activists, not to mention regardless of your race, your sexual orientation, or your age, or your geographic location. We can't stop till the rock is dropped. Since '73, it's been 35 years, and the Rockefeller laws are leaving families in tears and offenders in awe. Now it's time to take a step back, open our eyes, and look at the facts. Believe it or not, but research shows that drug treatment is much cheaper as opposed to imprisonment. It's also more successful in reducing drug-related offenses. The New York State will eliminate unnecessary expenses. We can't stop till the rock is dropped. Almost 13,000 drug offenders in New York State alone has no violent history. Now the only contact with loved ones is through mail, a visit, or a phone. It costs $500 million to imprison drug offenders a year, when the state can build treatment centers to provide effective care. 1988 to 1998, the prison system took on a $761 million increase, while our universities took on a $615 million decrease, at least. We can't stop till the rock is dropped. We need to fight, and it's time we be for real. These laws need to be abolished. Let's repeal. To trial judges in all drug-related cases, let's restore sentencing discretion. Let's be mindful, no matter what the race is, it's not murder, it's drug possession. Let's expand the funding available for an alternative to incarceration. Let's alleviate offenders and their families' exasperation. This is powerful information. These laws need confrontation. Is everyone still listening? What do you have to do? What do you have to lose? Let's take that money that's being wasted and put it to good use. Let's build rehabs in schools. Let's stay determined and let us not stop until they decide to drop the rock.